Hi there, it's Nicole here with my June 2015 Paper Doll Art Journal page. I've created a 2-page spread to share for this month. I didn't start out thinking I was going to do 2 pages, but I loved the pattern papers and I had tons of them left over from the June 2015 Simon Says Stamp card kit, and the page kind of just developed into a 2-page spread. To start, I stamped my first doll on some text paper, and like I said, I didn't plan on creating a 2-page layout, so I went ahead and started coloring her. A lot of times I'll stamp all the dolls that I'm going to use if I'm using more than one, and then kind of color them all at once and then stamp their clothes and cut out the clothes and so on and so forth. But for this one, I really just went one doll at a time because, like I said, I originally just kind of thought I would start or create with 1 or maybe even 2 dolls. A lot of times when I'm designing and developing my art journal page, I don't start out with a theme necessarily in mind. I knew I was using these bright Doodlebug summer themed pattern papers, and that they would lend themselves well to a summer themed or bright and fun layout. I started with coloring in the skin, and I'm using about 3 shades here. That's generally about how many I use for skin. I laid down my base color, and then I went in with my darkest color and then kind of pulled that color out with my mid-tone color and then blended it with my lightest color again. I did switch to 1 different marker, so I have 4 colors listed in the upper left corner of the screen, simply because I kind of changed the original color I wanted to use partway through. You can go over it as many times as you need to. I went back and darkened up some areas, and I always like to go in at the very end and kind of just trace where my darkest areas are, and it really gives a little pop there and makes it nice and sharp, if that makes sense. Now for the hair, what I love is this is a curly hairstyle, and I have struggled with curly hairstyles so much. And once I get this all colored in, it doesn't look like much now. I really was delighted with how it turned out. I am making little squiggle lines. I went in with my base color, which was C1, and then I pulled in, or I'm squiggling in this C9. This is my darkest color. That's going to be the majority of this hair color. But I made little squiggle lines all over. Then I'm going to go back with C5 and fill in, because you don't really want too much of that C1 showing. That's just a highlight. The BV04 is a nice fill-in for any of those lighter areas. It really even helps highlight the hair color more. And then it looks pretty muted. So I like to go back with my darkest color. I traced some of the stamp lines even there, especially around the face, and went in and made those little squiggle curly hairs even more, filled it in, darkened it up, and I was really happy with how it turned out. I can't wait to try this hairstyle with other colors of hair as well. For the first time, I just really felt like I maybe got that curly hair down. I'm going to stamp the outfit for her on a scrap of yellow polka dot paper there. I'd used that for some cards using the June 2015 card kit, and then I stamped the little sash there or scarf around her hips out of the orange paper. Now I decided to go ahead and stamp another one of the dolls, and at this point I really felt like I was just going to keep this to a 2-page layout, or excuse me, not a 2-page layout, a 2-doll layout on a 1 6x8 page. However, I did change that, and I'll talk about that when I get to that here in a little bit. Again, I started with the skin, laid down my base color, went in with my darkest color, and then I'll blend that out with the mid-tone color and just keep working on it until I get it the color that I want it to look. One great thing about fussy cutting all of these dolls is you don't necessarily have to stay in the lines. If I get outside the lines, I don't worry about it a whole lot. I try not to too much, simply because I think it does make the ink run a little bit if I'm using the My Favorite Things hybrid ink, which I am here. However, I don't think it runs too bad. So a lot of times I just like to, I kind of color it however. If it gets outside the lines, it's no big deal. I'm going to go in and create her hair now. I'm using YR21 as my base color, and then I'll feather in E19 and then E13. I always think it's amazing how when you're coloring anything but hair, when you lay down that base color and then you start feathering in the next color, it doesn't look great until you get those colors layered one on top of another, and then it really does start looking like hair. I like to always finish with my dark color, just like I did with the dark curly hairstyle. It really makes the hair pop. You can even trace around the face just a little bit to help the hair pop around the face as well. I'm using some warm gray markers to shade in the clothing. I'm just doing a little shading here. I will do additional shading once I get the clothing fussy cut and adhered to the dolls. Go ahead and stamp the outfit for the other girl. I'm going to stamp it out of some solid blue paper and then this awesome stripe. A lot of times I shy away from the multi-stripes, but I think it really worked in this case. I love the little stripe there over the blue. With the blue base, that is really, you're not going to see a lot of that. That is mostly just the ruffles around the sleeves and the hem of the dress. The layers like this, though, really build up the design so nicely. Go ahead and adhere the stripe on top of that, and there you can see that little peak of blue. I'm just placing acrylic blocks on top to hold that nice and flat while the liquid glue dries. For this girl's dress, I'm going to do a stripe base layer, which is only going to be on the ruffles around her arms. Then the next layer is the yellow. And then the little scarf around her hips is that great orange. I'm going to hold off on coloring the shoes for right now, and we'll get to those in a little bit. This is the third doll that I'm going to use here, and this is where I decided it was going to have to be a 2-pager, simply because all 3 dolls were just not going to fit on a 6x8 real estate. You know, they're just too big for that small of a size. Go ahead and, just like before, color in the skin. This is, I really had to work on the skin tones here to build it up. I tend to start very light just so that I have room to darken up the skin as needed. I tried out several different skin tones here on my page today, as well as hair tones. Your art journals are a great place to experiment and try out things and just kind of play. And for me, this is a great way to try out. I was trying out skin tones and hair, just seeing different things I like, seeing if I liked certain combinations, and just very, very fun and a great way to play. I'm going to build up my mid-tone color. I'm going to blend all of this out, and this is really where I felt like it was a little too light. So I'm going to go back in with my dark color and pull it out even more. This is my darkest color, and these colors blend beautifully. They almost blend too well, if that makes sense. They blend one right into another. I'm going to pull that mid-tone out even further, and then I can blend it all out with my lightest color again. And then go back in with the dark color and definitely add some highlights, like where the legs meet, where the skirt meets the legs, where her arms or the dress meets her arms, things like that. It makes it really pop. Then I can go ahead and move on to her hair. And the base color I started with, I ended up not really liking this E35. It's not even shown in the upper left corner of the screen. I left it in so you could see because I definitely did not change anything. But I went in with E33 and kind of colored over the entire thing. And then I'm going in with my E29 and E25 to darken the hair. Again, I love these colors together, but they almost blend out too well. So I had to really work to get that hair darkened because I wanted it darker, or a nice dark brown, but I had to work at it to get it to how I wanted it to look. The E25 almost blended out the E29 too much. But by going back in with the E29 and feathering in darker areas all along the face, the crown of the head, it really does give it a nice dark look. I even went in with a little E49 to darken it up even more when I was finished. Give it a little bit richer look and color. Make sure feather out a little E29 if I got it too dark in a couple of places. Then I even went back in with my skin tones again now that that ink had kind of dried while I worked on the hair, and darkened up the skin even more. Once I got the hair down, I thought, oh, I definitely didn't get the skin exactly the way I wanted it to look, so I went back. I'm going to darken all of that up. I really do like these three colors together though. Next, it's time to outfit her, and I picked this great polka dot paper and then the orange that I used previously, but I ended up not liking that, so I used the reverse of the solid blue, which ended up being a yellow, and I liked it a lot better. So I even stamped this several times because I didn't get a good impression. But a lot of times I shy away from the bold polka dots and even the stripes that I did on the other dress, simply because I'm always worried if I'm going to like it, but it really worked for this page. I love the designs. They're small. The stripe is small, the polka dot is small. I think they worked really nicely. Then I'll go over the outfits, add some shading with my gray markers. I am using warm grays. I often use cool grays as well. It just depends. Sometimes I'll use certain colored markers just depending on the project. For this one, I just kind of did some quick shading with my warm gray markers. If you get too dark, go in with your light one or even with a colorless blender and blend it out. But I love the dimension that it gives. It really, when you start, I always think, oh my gosh, that's way too dark. But I think once you get it all shaded, it really looks like the rest of the doll. You put so much work and shading into the hair and the skin and everything else. If you put the clothes on flat, it really takes away from the whole design. Go ahead and add that shading now on my last dress. With the bolder pattern, I did need to go up in the warm gray I used. In fact, I think I used warm gray 6 here to really darken up those pleats. And I think it works. And remember, once the alcohol ink dries, it won't be near as dark. Now, I like to adhere the clothes before I fussy cut simply because it makes it a lot easier to cut the dolls out. It gives them some nice stability. I'm going to trace the shoes on this doll here with a black gel pen. Make them nice and bright and shiny. The little highlights on the shoes I'm going to leave alone for now. And you can see the dolls are all cut out. I used a craft knife where the arms and the body meet, or the legs crisscross, because it makes it much easier to cut out those little areas with a craft knife rather than scissors. And then I'm decorating the dolls with the enamel stickers from the June 2015 kit. The sunglasses fit perfectly, the little enamel flowers. Now this headband is actually from one of the Julie Nutting Hats collection stamps that coordinate with the dolls. It's the bunny ears, but it has a headband with the bunny ears on it, so it kind of works double duty. If you don't, have an Easterish type page or spring type page, or even a Halloween page maybe, or Halloween doll, you can use just that headband portion for the dolls. which I love. There is a headband in another Julie Nutting collection, but it's for the smaller dolls. I kind of think there's two different kinds of dolls. There's the more sophisticated dolls, and then there's the more, I would say, cutesy dolls. And these are the more cutesy dolls, and their heads are a little bit bigger, and so the headband doesn't really fit. So I was delighted that the headband from that Hats stamp set fit. Now this ice cream card is actually a lemonade stand design from the Silhouette online store, but I made it work for my purposes here. There is an ice cream cart. It's really, really similar. So instead of buying something new, I used what I had in my Silhouette library already. I am tracing the pieces with a black brush tip marker. It gives them a little bit of a black outline. You can really see it on the cart. And that kind of, I think it looks good with the stamps since they have that black outline around them. It's just a personal preference. You totally don't have to do that. That's just one of those things that's just me. But I like that little black outline. Now I was a little messy around the wheel, and I'm going to show you how I got around that. My pin slipped a few times and I didn't want to see too much of that. So this doll is standing right in front of that, and I made sure I positioned her so that she is disguising all of my little uh-ohs there. I'm going to use some of the ice cream treats in the snow cone there and place them in the ice cream cart, and then use one of the other enamel stickers on the waistband of her dress. Place the little lemonade on the card as well because it's just the perfect size for these dolls. I love it. I can go ahead and color in the shoes on the other two dolls. To make it easy, instead of paper piecing the shoes, I'm going to color them in, and then with the black gel pen, and add highlights with the white gel pen. But you want to make sure the black gel pen is the black coloring is completely dry first. Now for the label, or the sign, I guess, on the ice cream cart, I am using this great design from Simon Says Stamp, but it has a greeting inside of this label design. So I use the black soot distress marker to only color in the outline, and stamped it, and then stamped a greeting from another Simon Says stamp set right in the middle. Now kind of carefully I colored with alcohol, or my Copic markers, the alcohol ink markers, over that distress inked frame. Normally I would not do that. I didn't mind if it was a little messy for this, although I didn't think it bled too terribly bad. But normally I would not do that. This is just a very small little area, and it's a small sign, so I think it worked for this. Then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut that out and attach it right to my ice cream cart, and that'll finish the left side of this 2-page spread. The dress, just that little tip of the dress, is going to overlap to the second page. That's one of my favorite things to do if doing a 2-page spread of any kind, whether it be an art journal or scrapbook page. I think it really helps the whole design flow and look like it goes together. I'm going to stamp another phrase along the bottom edge on the right side, plus I've added some die cut flat bottom clouds. And then I will add a date using a Carrie Bradford date stamp, and that will finish up my June page. Thanks for watching this video showcasing the June 2015 Paper Doll Art Journal page. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Thanks for watching.